Hello everybody. Me again. Let's come out to get my mother some birthday presents, so I thought I'd stop off and make another video. Today I'm smoking a Punch Petit Corona, and this is a Cuban. Don't know if you can read that, but that says Punch Havana, Cuba. Anyway, the topic of this video today is eccentricities. Little things that I do that, defy logic and, reason, and I do them solely because, I want to, I feel compelled to, etc. Now, there are plenty of examples of this. In my gadget usage is definitely one of my purchases. I think one of the earliest examples I can remember is when I got my first laptop in 2005. We went around to some local shops and had a look at what they had to offer. And I saw this Median. It was a little silver thing, quite thin, light, etc. These days it probably would go in the ultra portable or thin and light category. Back then we just called it a laptop. And it was around £400. Next to it was a HP. It was bigger, it was chunkier, also about £400. I don't remember the specification of the HP because I didn't really look much at it, but it was better. I do know that it was better than the Median. Now these days I probably wouldn't do this, but as an example of an eccentricity, I'd got my heart set on this Median because I'm going to be taking it with me to school. I'm going to need it to be light, not big and bulky. So I've got the Median. And that's kind of, generally what I do with a lot of, tech stuff that I want to buy. There might be better options available for the same price, but I'll get my heart set on something, and I'll be like, nope, I'm getting this. And thankfully, the Median, it turned out to be a capable system. It could play games and whatnot. The last game I tried to play on it before I replaced it was Halo. That didn't work very well. It was a bit laggy, and there was a problem with transparencies on it. They were showing up as white. Also, I tried to play the Elder Scrolls Morrowind on it, which kind of chugs on faster systems. Now, it was okay, I could play it, but the frame rates were in the teens, and it wasn't a great experience. One of my more recent things, there's a set of speakers by a company called Harman Kardon. They were distributed with Dell computers in the early 2000s. when I first saw these speakers many years ago, I wanted a set. You know, I'd been looking on eBay to get them for years and years. In 2011 or 2012, probably 2012, I think. I got some speakers from, some different speakers, some new, brand new ones. And these are I'm not exactly sure. I mean, you look at the reviews for these Harman Kardon speakers, and everybody says, that they're freaking amazing. And people who owned them and then they died, they're saying, I like them so much, I bought the same again when they stopped working. And even though I've got newer speakers that could possibly be better, I've still been I've this sort of, I don't know exactly how to describe it. It's sort of an urge, maybe, desire, I don't know, but I've always had this sort of niggling desire to buy these speakers. And recently, because my grandparents gave me some money, I've been looking around for some, and the other few days ago I bought a set of them. Now, the only way that they are obviously better than the speakers that I've got now is that they actually have a volume control on the speakers themselves rather than down on the subwoofer. I've gotten quite adept at changing the volume with my big toe. But it's not exactly convenient or accurate. So, yeah, I've got those coming as well. And something else that I'm looking at getting, I'm looking at getting a camcorder so that I can, do my videos on something that doesn't require a delicate balancing act to get, to stand up, so that I am able to record on it. And the quality on this phone camera is atrocious. It's like, what I do now, you probably notice my resolution have been all over the shop, and I started doing HD 720p, but because my internet at home sucks, it would take hours to upload this video, and I can't be doing this. People were complaining at home because it was hogging all the bandwidth when I was uploading it, and I thought, I can't be doing that. I've got to get something else. So I tried, standard definition resolutions, and once I'd fiddled around with everything, I'd worked out that the only way that I could get a full width video would be to shoot it in 720p and then resize it to YouTube's standard definition resolution, which is 854 by 480. And I noticed, comparing 720p to 480p, that the quality was exactly the same. Literally identical. You could not tell a difference. One of the things that I used to look at this was on the back here. The seam on the back headrest there is quite a defined seam, so it's easy to see on the recording, and it looks just as blurry and grainy on 720p as it does on 480p. So there's no point in me filming, in me uploading in 720p when the quality is exactly the same as 480p. The issue I've got with this phone, though, is it seems to be a problem with Linux phones of everybody that I know that records on Linux. Ned Spodos was the first, I'd heard of him having to do that. It's like every 10 minutes it stops recording and you have to start again, like right now. And that is pretty frustrating, to be honest. I mean, thankfully, I'm doing it from the front-facing camera, so I can see everything on the screen. If I was recording it with the rear camera, then I would be screwed. But, there's always the chance that I will forget and all that. So what I'm looking at doing, like I said, is getting a camcorder. And now, the camcorder that I want to buy, I don't want anything high definition because, my bandwidth, I can't upload it easily. And my brother does have a JVC camera, but the resolution on that is 720 by 576. And if I uploaded that to YouTube, it would pillbox it. And it wouldn't look so good. Because, the 576 height is a PAL thing. So, Britain and Europe are in the PAL television standard. And because YouTube being American conforms to the NTSC television standard, which is 640 by 480 or 720 by 480, but in this case it's 854 by 480. But still, the height is the thing, so it would downscale and I would lose quality on that. So a camera that I want to get is a camera that I'd been looking at last year, but someone else want it. It's from a company called Genius. It's a Cybershot DV1210. I think that's the one. Now, see, normally, though, there wouldn't be anything to write home about, but it's not widescreen. And this is where my eccentricities come into play. Though I'm using superior thing here, but I've got problems with it. My brother's camera is widescreen, but there'll be some slight problems with that because of the resolution that it uses. This camera, instead of being 720 by 480 or 854 by 480, it's 640 by 480, which is standard full frame, standard definition, like television used to be. Now, really, I should go for something else, but for some reason, I really like this camera. I don't know why. Really, there are superior ones out there that I could probably get for around the same price. And of course, it's used, it's pretty old. But for some reason, I just want this particular camera. I can't explain why, I just do. Like with those speakers, the Harman Kardon ones. Last year I was thinking about doing some more YouTube videos, and I wanted to use my own video camera because at the time, the phone I had, it didn't have enough storage to record videos, and the other camera was my brother's, and sometimes he's been a bit pissy about me using them. Now, I'd looked around on eBay for something. I sort of set myself a budget of about 20 quid, which isn't much, but you can get something quite decent for that. And then I see this Genius thing, and the one that I found at the time, was boxed complete and everything. This one isn't boxed complete, but it's got pretty much everything. The only things it's missing are things that I'm not going to be interested to have. So it's it's no skin off my nose. So I just thought, this is interesting. I didn't know why I found it interesting. It was just right, I want this. just similar things when I've been buying computer parts as well. I was looking at replacing my power supply back in 2012, I think it was, probably. Yeah, either 2011 or 2012. Because the one that I had, there was something wrong with the fan. I didn't want the fan, breaking down, the power supply overheating and blowing up. So I looked online to get a new one. Now, obviously, I wanted something that was better than what I already had, and considering that how long ago I bought that one, it was in late 2010. So, I imagined I could get something better for cheap price. And I was working at the time, so I had some cash to flash. And my usual PC part supplier, Scan, they had a clearance section of stuff that's end of line. They've had it around for a while and nobody's been buying it, so they just they heavily reduced it just to get rid of it. And then there was this 1 kilowatt power supply there, which is 1,000 watts. The power supply that I had at the time was 750 watts, and it was one of the first generation 1,000 watt power supplies from 2006. It was brand new in the box, never been used. It had plenty of power on the 12 volt rail, which is exactly what me as a PC enthusiast needs. It's something like it's 54 watts, maybe. Sorry, 54 amps. 54 amps, I think. Though it could be more. I mean, it could be all the way up into the 80s. I can't remember because it's been a long time since I've looked at it. I have a friend in the States who I talk to about this stuff. If I'm wanting to buy something, I'll run it by him and see what he thinks. And he said, I wouldn't bother getting that. I'd get something else, like this. And he showed me some, 850 watt ones. They were around a similar price, but for some reason, I just got, I'd got my heart set on this Silverstone Olympia 1000 watt power supply, and in the end I went against his advice and bought it. It's been absolutely fine, no problems at all, not a hiccup. It provides plenty of power, no issues at all. It will see me for the foreseeable future, but the only reason why I got that power supply is because I had this odd desire to have it. It's like I latched onto it and thought, this is the one that I want. I'm even similar way with cars, but for cars it's hard to say, to talk about eccentricity with cars, because people like what they like. I mean, this thing, which it's over 75, it's if an American looked at it, they'd probably think it was built in the 70s. But it wasn't. It was built in 2004. And that's just probably my liking for classic cars is the reason why I fell in love with this thing when it first came out in '98. But as I said before in my other video, when I talked about cars, was the Dacia Sandero, and I hate that kind of car. It's small, and it's going to be really lacking in any kind of creature comforts. I mean, it doesn't even have electric windows and all of that, but for some reason I like it. The same with the Proton Gen 2. It defies all logic, me liking it and wanting it, yet I want it anyway. And another recent purchase that was, my eccentricity ruling my head. I wanted to buy a more modern Windows laptop because the newest one I had was my Dell Inspiron with a Pentium 3 that was built in 2001. It's still a great laptop. I can do lots of stuff with it, but I want something a bit newer. So I can take it with me if I go away, and I can use it if something goes wrong with my main PC. So I had a look around. It was coming up to Christmas. I set myself a budget. I was looking at stuff that I wanted, and I thought, it's always particular models of things that I want, or brands. The first one I was looking at was a 17-inch E-machines. It was only only had the 1.9 gigahertz Pentium dual core, and an Intel GMA 4500M HD. It was a piece of crap by my standards, but I wasn't intending to play many games on it. And the games that I wanted to play on it, it would have been able to run, but the price got a bit too high, and I thought, I'm going to look for something else. And in the end, I think, hang on a minute. Years ago, I remember seeing these E-System laptops in PC World. They were their own brand ones. They were cheap. The specifications on most of them weren't that great. They had Celerons in them, but there was the occasional one that had a Pentium dual core that was it was all right. And so I thought, I'll have a look at one of those. And I looked at reviews for it. People were saying that the SIS graphics chip in it was terrible, and you couldn't play games and stuff on it. I thought, what do you expect? It's integrated. But I was expecting it to be of a similar kind of prowess as one of the Intel integrated graphics chips. I went through my Steam list, right, I'm going to install this, 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 etc. Fully expecting it to be able to run them. Now I get it. Paying quite a bit more than I wanted to, ended up spending more on it than I would have done the 17-inch E-machines, which now I wish I'd have bought. Since I've had a new battery for it, upgraded the RAM, but it overheats. So I've had it apart. I've replaced some thermal pads and stuff on it. Unfortunately, I also had to replace one of the. I had to place the speakers on it, which was a bloody task and a half, I'll tell you. And so now it's out of commission, because when I replaced the thermal pads and stuff on it, instead of putting thermal paste on the CPU, I used a thermal pad. Now obviously either it's not enough, or it's not allowing a proper mating between the surfaces, because it was a bit higher than the other ones. I think the other ones possibly used thermal pads to bridge the gap between the heatsink and the chips. So now I can't have it on for more than a few minutes before it shuts itself down, so I need to take that apart again and take off the thermal pad from the CPU and put thermal paste on it instead. But when I did have it and it worked, tried to load up a game on it. Didn't run at all. It lagged so much, even on the lowest settings. It's like, Jesus Christ, this is horrendous. And I tried to run some 2D games, games that have no 3D graphics at all. They just use sprites and stuff like that. Even then, it struggled. Like, Jesus Christ, this thing is... The only reason the 3D accelerator in this thing is only capable of running Aero, give you, the transparencies and glossy effects on Windows Vista and Windows 7. It's like, Jesus Christ. How the hell could they get away with making something like that in 2009? It's ridiculous. Oh yes, my eccentricity came back to bite me in the arse, because my desire to get that particular laptop has left me with something that I can't play games on at all. Unless it, my 2001 Dell with the Pentium 3 and a GeForce 2 plays games better than this thing. Excuse me. So it's if something doesn't work, I get annoyed with it. and I don't use it for a while. It took a while for me to take apart the thing in the first place when it was overheating, because I'd only had it apart, earlier in the week, and it was like, Jesus Christ, I don't want to go through all of this again, so I left it for about 3 months, and then I took it apart, did the thermal pads, and then I turn it on again, and it starts shutting itself. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I've only just taken this apart, I'm not going to take it apart again, I'm too annoyed. So yeah, that's been sitting there for several weeks now, and I haven't touched it since. So yeah, my eccentricity, does often, screw me over. So I really should stop with the eccentricity, because it leaves me up a certain creek without a paddle sometimes. But yeah, the speakers I'm sure they'll be fine, and I'm not exactly an audiophile, so I'm not going to be able to tell much of a difference between the speakers that I've got and these Harman Kardon ones. For all I know, they could be better. But at least I have a volume control that I can use with my hand instead of using my bloody toe. And the camera, I've seen there's one video on YouTube where someone's uploaded a video quality test of this particular camera. For some reason, even though it's 640 by 480, they've uploaded it to 720p. The only thing that I can think of is that the software that they've used upscaled it. It looks fine. So the only issue with it is that it's not widescreen. But then again, all I'm doing is vlogs, so you don't need to see all of this. You only need to see me. So yeah, and of course I can't show you what I've got here, but there's a CD behind this. I've got it wedged between the windscreen and the dashboard, and I'm leaning the phone against that. Now that is a real bitch to set up, because either the phone will fall over, the CD will slip out, I'll have to do it all again. It usually takes me 5 minutes to get the thing set up, and with this I'll just be able to plonk it on the dashboard, and that's it. I won't have to worry about it. Yeah, I often tend to let my heart rule my head when it comes to making decisions about buying things. Although sometimes my eccentricity does pay off, because my eccentricity has made me stick with Nvidia when it comes to graphics cards, because of some bad experiences I had with ones from ATI, which is now AMD. And I bought in late 2010. I bought the most powerful graphics card in the world. I've still got that 5 years later. Well, no, really 4 and a bit years later, and it's definitely been a good purchase on that. And me insisting on getting a 16 by 10 monitor as opposed to a 16 by 9 once we could get the extra pixel height. That's 1920 by 1200 instead of 1920 by 1080, which is what most stuff is. And the phone fell over when I pressed the button. But anyway, computers used to be 16 by 10, which is why you'll tend to find monitors that are 1440 by 900, 1680 by 1050. Laptops used to be 1280 by 800. Now they're 1366 by 768. You gain a little bit this way, but you lose a bit this way, which is the problem there. But yeah, I'd used a 16 by 10 monitor in the past, and I wanted those little extra pixels because because my old Mac supports 1920 by 1200, but not 1920 by 1080. Also, the games, they're more geared towards 16 by 10. Older ones, newer ones, they're all for 1080p, because a lot of them are console ports. And if you run it in a 16 by 10 resolution, it will either letterbox it or it will cut off the sides. Even though 16 by 10, there's supposed to be a wider field of view because there's more pixels, it cuts them off because, lazy programming. But yeah, older games, the maximum resolution tended to be 1600 by 1200, and the widescreen equivalent of 1600 by 1200 is 1920 by 1200. So that means that I can run older games at the maximum resolution instead of messing around with configuration files to get it running at 1400 by 1080 or 1440 by 1080, whichever one it is, or running in a lower resolution. So yeah, but of course, because barely anybody makes 16 by 10 monitors, because they're all just making 1080p ones, the ones that are around are either very expensive or really cheap. There's no in between. And I bought a cheap one, and it's not great. One of the reasons why I bought it is because it was the same brand as the monitor that I was replacing, which had been a good monitor, but something went iffy with it, and I had to send it in for an RMA for them to look at it and decide if they would repair or replace it for me. They had it for 3 months and they couldn't find a problem. 3 months. Emailing them, they wouldn't send me any messages weren't being returned. It was like, you've had this thing for 3 months now, you still haven't found anything. I want it back. And as I get home and plug it in, bam, the problem that it was there was right there. I don't know how they could have missed it. It was glaringly obvious. But yeah, I mean, it's still an okay monitor and everything. I mean, it's got a chip on it, and some of the pixels have died, and there's something weird going on in the top left corner with a bit of ghosting. But it still works fine, and I'll carry on using it until either it dies or something really breaks on it. Any other eccentricities? Phones are an eccentricity. My first smartphone was a HP iPac, which I bought in 2010, and it ran Windows Mobile 5.5. Then I got an Android device, and then I got a contract instead of going on pay-as-you-go, which in the US is prepaid, I believe. So with the contract, I got a free iPhone, which was the 3GS. Now I loved that thing. I'd been using it for years. I mean, when it came time to renew my contract, I got an Android phone instead, which was it was Huawei Ascend P2. Now it was a pretty decent phone. It had a quad-core CPU, it had a 720p screen, but because it was Huawei, it was cheap, so I got it free on contract. But it had some problems. The notification, there's something to do with the quiet hours on it. If it had been left, you'd put it to sleep for a certain amount of time, it would stop pinging notifications. I'd wake up in the morning and wake it up, and I would get all these emails and notifications coming through. I'd go out, come home, turn on the phone, and I'd get and you know, these notifications would show up hours after they'd been sent, and that's no good. I started using the 3GS for a while, but then something went wrong on the 3GS, so I had to go back to using the Android device. No, this is no good, I can't do this. So I called up my carrier and I said to him, I want an iPhone, send me an iPhone instead and I'll send you back this. I managed to convince them, I twisted their arm, and they sent me an 8GB 4S, which, didn't compare to the Android phone I had, but hey, it was still an iPhone. But I hate iOS 7 and iOS 8. I first saw screenshots of it when it was in beta, and I was like, oh my god, that looks ugly as sin. Really, it's like, pastel colours, and it looks like baby's first operating system. It's horrible. It just looks so amateurish and ugly. Compared to iOS 6 and older, which, they had sort of physical quality to them. They had sort of, reflective glass effects like Windows Vista. Embossing, they had chrome rings around the edges of icons and folders and stuff. They had leather accents on things. And, I loved how that looked. And, what I ended up doing, I hated iOS 7 so much. And because the phone was only 8GB, and iOS 7 took up more space than iOS 6. With the same amount of applications I had installed on my 8GB 3GS, I was running out of space all the time. It kept coming with an error saying, please free up some space. And I was running, temp file cleanup apps several times a day sometimes. It was ridiculous. I thought, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on eBay, I'm going to buy myself a 32GB 3GS. Even though it was, 3GS came out in 2009 and this was 2014. I did this. 2014, buying one. That's definitely, my eccentricity. I was so, fixated on this version of the operating system that I didn't want to use iOS 7. It's on my iPad because you need it for the compatibility and everything, for the newer apps. But when I was on the daily driver on the phone, I could not stand it using iOS 7. I was using my 3GS for a while, and that's a good phone. I've still got it. Storage is my backup phone in case something goes wrong with this Android device. But yeah, that's a prime example of my eccentricity. I couldn't stand using iOS 7 so much that I actually bought a 5-year-old phone just so that I could continue using the older version. Yeah, you really do hate iOS 7 and iOS 8. Though Android has this thing has got so many niggling little issues, sometimes I want to go back to using an iPhone. But I can't really do that because I spent £300 on this thing. So yeah, I'm kind of stuck. I sort of have to use it because if I stop using it, I won't forgive myself for dropping £300 on it. Neither will my mother. So yeah. But anyways, I've got 20 seconds left on this, so I may as well wrap it up here. Hope you found this little chat interesting. If you have any comments, please leave them down below. If there's anything that you'd like to cover in a future video, please let me know. Next time I see you, it might be in glorious standard definition again. Anyway, be seeing you.